Alright guys, I am back from PAX South. I took the PSTV over there and let me tell you what happened. First of all, this is this nice little sock case I've had for the longest time. I used to keep handhelds in here. And I got it from, I think it was like Deal Extreme years and years ago. I don't even know if they still carry it. But it is just perfectly. It's the perfect size for this. So that worked really well. Unfortunately, though, that's the only thing that worked really well on this thing because I tested it out before I left, just to make sure the connections were okay, just to make sure I could sign in, it recognized me, and all that good stuff. And it did go ahead and recognize me, but and I was even able to get like the PS4 remotely linking to it. But once I actually got to San Antonio and into my hotel room, it wouldn't connect. It wouldn't connect at all with any internet network. I mean, it would go ahead and recognize them, but it wouldn't let me in there. Like, for instance, on my phone, when I was connecting that up, of course, it'll bring you to like this little page, for the hotel, which says, you gotta put in this code just to make sure that you're a guest, that just make sure you're staying there, and then it would work. And even on the wiki pad, I brought that along as well. It was able to connect after I put in the code. This one, though, it would not connect at all, including even after I tried to go into like the Internet Explorer, like the actual browser, and it wouldn't even bring me to that. It would just say that the page is inaccessible, that I'm not able to access it, that sort of thing. So I don't know what the hotel was doing, but I guess maybe there was some sort of a firewall right there that I couldn't get through. And not only that, I also tried by the Ethernet connection in the hotel. They did have an Ethernet cable there, and it still didn't work. So it just wouldn't connect at all, even when it was an Ethernet jack in there. Now, some of you were saying in the comments in the part 1 of this review that I wasn't really understanding how PSTV works. That it can only stream PS4 over Wi-Fi. So, in other words, it has to be local Wi-Fi for it to work. But that is not true. On the Sony site, it actually says it will connect by internet if you want to. There is an option for that. And in fact, that's the reason why I said that, this could actually work. This could be really cool to be like a remote portable PS4, because one of the first times I ever heard about this was this guy who was saying that, yeah, I could connect with my PSTV, across a different state. So in other words, like not even local at all. So it does connect by internet, through an internet connection if you like have the right settings. But that's also the problem, because of course this thing wasn't connecting at all. And not only that, but in order for it to work, you have to like work out some sort of magic with the router numbers and all this other junk, and I don't know, just a whole bunch of bullshit. So I mean, it just wasn't gonna happen because this thing wasn't connecting at all. So unfortunately, that didn't work, and I just couldn't get it to work in my hotel room. So I mean, I couldn't get any use out of it while I was over there at PAX. But I think this review was doomed from the start because I didn't really spend that much time in my hotel room. I seriously think that I spent more waking time getting breakfast in the hotel than I did being awake in the hotel room, because it was just a crash pad for me. And I had a wonderful time at PAX South. I'll tell you guys about that later. But yeah, so I was not able to get any use out of this. But even if I did, I think it would still be bad, because when I was able to get the remote streaming remote play to work here in my apartment, it just worked horribly. It had absolutely horrible lag, horrifying lag, and so it just couldn't. It was unplayable basically. So that did not work, and I guess it will depend on some people. Like I said, some people, they're very happy with this thing with remote play. So I'm sure that was just a problem with me, that I'm forever doomed to walk this earth with a shitty laptop, shitty computer power, and shitty Wi-Fi. But yeah, that was just my fault. Well, actually, no, it's not my fault. This damn thing, like I said, a million things could go wrong with it, and sure enough, a million things, everything that could go wrong did go wrong. Bad connection, so there was tons of lag, and once I get to the hotel, I can't even use the damn thing. So, what else can I say about this? I found out that actually has 1 gig of memory in here. So you have 1 gigabyte accessible to you without having the memory card, without having to spring for a memory card. You have 1 gigabyte accessible to you, and because of that, I was able to download a few PS1 classics onto this. And so I was able to use that, but to be honest, I think that's a pretty useless feature because I still have my PS3 connected to a different monitor over there. So if I'm going to be playing PS1 like any classic PS1 games, I'm probably going to play it on that instead because it works there anyways. And not only that, but it also reads original PS1 discs, which I have a lot of as well. And of course, this thing is not going to read a PS1 disc. So it was pretty useless on that front. And plus, I probably wouldn't be playing. It looks horrible on a screen, anyways, when you play a PS1 game from here. Maybe I'm in the minority there, but there are some people who are saying that they're happy with the PS1 games on here. I thought they looked absolutely terrible. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm just spoiled because if I was to go ahead and play PS1 games from my hotel room, it would have been with a wiki pad. Because, you know what, let me see if I could get myself in here. Wink, 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 wink. There is a way to play PS1 games on Android. So if you get my drift, I mean, I would much rather prefer it there because also I can mess with the settings and make the images and the textures a lot sharper. So, wink, wink, there is a better way to play PS1 games that you own, you know, without even needing the discs. Wink, wink. And so yeah, this thing was just a big disappointment. I really think that it is not really made for someone like me, in the sense that I don't own a PS Vita. I don't even have any interest in the PS Vita library, because it seems that all the games that are in there, I could either play them on a PS4. In other words, they're cross compatible, or I'm just not interested in them at all. I'm gonna get a lot of heat for this, but I really don't think it has a very strong library. So that could just be me that I haven't seen a game that I want yet, but I really don't see if there's anything that I'm missing. So unless I can really get myself to get into the Vita's library and then really start exploiting this thing with the Vita, the Vita compatibility right there, I really don't see any point in owning this. Not to mention that, and I'm going to go back to the comments, of course. You guys were very helpful in the comments. You gave a lot of good suggestions. But one of the big suggestions that you guys made was that I not upgrade the firmware. Because I know that there was like this exploit that someone was able to make in a lower firmware version where they were able to get all the apps to play. Every app, that would work on Vita would work on this. Because of course not all Vita games will work on this because it doesn't have, a touch screen, touchpad, all that sort of stuff. But there is some sort of an exploit which will allow you to go ahead and use all the Vita games. And I decided not to do that because I didn't think that was being honest to the review. So not only that, I was also kind of running on a short time frame because I needed to set this thing up before I left for my trip. So when it wanted me to remote play, when I had to test the remote play, it wanted me to go ahead and update the firmware. So I went ahead and did that just to get the damn thing to work, because it would not work right out of the box without updating the firmware. And so I did that, and then that, I guess, doomed me unless I can find a way to downgrade again. But yeah, so unfortunately I was not able to take advantage of that whole exploit so I could play everything. But again, like I said, I mean, I don't have a lot of interest in the Vita library, so I don't see how that would help me anyways. And again, it is just a little bit more honest with the review, kind of like how the GameStick review was. The GameStick was a horrible, horrible device, but somebody did make an exploit on there so you could run vanilla Android on there. And so just like this, how you can have an exploit where you can run the whole PS Vita library, I could have taken advantage of that, but that's not being honest to somebody who would just be picking us up off the street and then, try and work with it, because sometimes those things are hard to do. I'm sure that you guys are going to explain that it's easy, but even making vanilla Android to work on the GameStick, that was probably more than what I would trust some people to do. So even though it was easy to me, it's probably not easy to somebody else. So I thought that was more honest to the review to just go ahead and treat it like if I was just a regular PS customer and I wasn't using exploits or anything like that, so I can get whatever to run on this thing. So taking all that aside, all I have is, and you know what, just a minute, I also realized that some people say that, this is a piece of crap, it's a set-top box, and it can't even run Netflix, what the hell? So that is a valid complaint. But one of the things you have to realize is that when you do remote play, if you're able to remote play with this thing, then what you basically have is just the front end to your PS4. It's really amazing that it basically becomes a PS4 in other words. It's just your whole PS4 home screen and everything. So technically, if you wanted to, I think, if you were able to remote play this thing, then you would be able to get Netflix to run on this by use of the PS4 remote play. So in other words, you would have the Netflix running off your PS4 and then streaming into this onto your TV or monitor. So there is a way to get Netflix on here, but it would just have to be by remote play. And speaking of remote play though, like I said, I had a bad connection, so this is probably just my own issue. But again, I think that there are other people out there who also live with poor connections, to the internet and whatnot. So one of the biggest problems is that it would not connect sometimes. It would just connect whenever it felt like it. And in fact, sometimes it would tell me that the connection is poor, I can't connect, and then I just hit retry, and then it'll get it finally the second time. So it is really finicky, and you absolutely have to have basically your own satellite over this thing so that way it could get the proper connection. So there are just so many things that are so frustrating about this, and it's just so frustrating. And every time that I want to just end this review, I just keep on finding something else that's aggravating, like the Vita memory cards, which I think I already explained. They're absurdly expensive. It is highway robbery. I'm a big Sony fanboy, but I cannot excuse the prices of their memory cards. It is by far one of the worst anti-consumer things I've ever seen. And that's also something that's keeping me from playing Vita games, because a lot of them, they need their data to download onto the device. There's only a few of them, like for instance, I think like Dynasty Warriors or something like that. There are a few of them that they don't require you to download anything, they'll just play off the card. But a lot of them they do need to download, and that takes up space, and that's going to cost you money. And their prices are just outrageous. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Shame on you, Sony. That is by far the worst thing I've ever seen on any Sony device. And it's even worse when you hear about like the prototypes that they found for the PS Vita, that I think they had like regular micro SD cards, and they also had HDMI out, which basically means that they would never have to have one of these. And oh my god, it is just so sad. That could have been such a great device. This could have been a great device, but instead they had to just fuck it all up with their little proprietary memory cards. And so really, that's one of the few things I will go ahead and blame Sony and say, you know what, make the bed that you slept in. You have to make the bed you sleep in, because you went that very stupid route with those memory cards, and consumers are smarter than that. They're not going to go for that sort of thing, just like, with Xbox. They're not going to be going for that really shitty policy that they tried to make with the original, when the Xbox One was going to launch. And likewise, they're not going to be going for those expensive memory cards when there are better solutions out there, and you just decide to go that way. But anyways, I'm ranting now. This is such a rant-filled device. And I think that some of you might be mad at this review because I'm not recommending it. In fact, I'm going to struggle to find a use out of this thing. And so I'm not recommending it, and I think that I know that some of you in the comments, at least in the part 1 video, are very happy with this device. You think it's amazing, it's great, but again, I just don't think it's for me. I think it's maybe for somebody who already owns a PS Vita, who already enjoys the PS Vita games library, and now they can go ahead and play this on their TV without the Vita. So maybe that's what this thing is for, but it's just not for me. And I know that I'm not using all the features that it has in there, like for instance the PS Vita compatibility, but in my defense, I mean, I knew that I went into this knowing that I was just going to look at the remote play features. So maybe this isn't a fair review, but at the same time, this kind of shows the danger that I was talking about last time in the last review, that I need my reviews to be interesting to you and to me. And this is unfortunately a device where, without being able to seamlessly and flawlessly use the remote play features, it's not interesting to me. And because of that, it might be interesting to you, but there's that disconnect there because it's just not interesting to me as far as like the Vita compatibility goes. And because of that, I think that this is a pretty lousy review. So if you want to say that I'm lousy, that I'm full of shit, that I'm just a bastard for saying that this thing is not worth your money, then go ahead. I agree with you. But yeah, everything that it does, I could think of other devices that do it better. And so even at $20, I feel like I was ripped off. And because of that, I'm not going to give Sony one more cent for those proprietary stupid memory cards. And because of that, I'm probably going to miss out some of the best features with this thing. So I'm gonna miss out on that, but I don't care. I'm happy with not enjoying this thing to its full potential because I just don't think it was made for me. But maybe it's made for you, and if so, then I hope you have a very strong internet connection. But yeah, so that's it. Let me tell you guys about PAX South. Guys, I had one hell of a PAX. It was much better than last year. And I think the reason for that is because now I'm into the indie scene thanks to IndieBox, and so I was able to appreciate the show floor a lot more. The whole time I was just zigzagging between booths, just trying everything that I could. And one of the first things I tried was a product called Verzoom. It's a virtual reality headset that also has like this exercise bike thing attached to it, and so you play games with it, and it's actually really cool. It works pretty well. You use your shoulders to steer, and at first it feels a little awkward, but then you get used to it really quickly. And they had this game where you explore this fantasy world on top of a Pegasus, and that was amazing. You weren't really doing anything, like you weren't collecting anything or defeating any enemies, but just flying around on that and just exploring the land was really, really cool. Their brochure said that they're going to be taking pre-orders soon for $200, and even though their product is pretty close to, getting to the market, I thought that was pretty steep because all you're getting is an exercise bike. It doesn't come, of course, with a headset or anything, duh. I just think it's a little bit too steep. I'm not going to be putting my money down. And they also don't have a lot of games right now. But for that $200, they also say that they'll be giving you all the games in the future. And as I understand that they're going to be bringing it to PSVR and then also Oculus, but the one that they had at the booth was the Vive headset. So I was able to try Vive for the first time, and I'm really impressed because it feels like you're putting on a hat. It doesn't feel as constraining as Oculus, but then again, the Oculus one that I tried, that was the development kit, of course, so it kind of felt like you were putting on like a scuba mask to me. But with Vive, it was just like you're putting on a hat. It was very, very comfortable. It just sits on your nose and on your head. I didn't really notice anything with like the image quality. Like then again, it was a year ago. It was at the last PAX that I tried Oculus, but it doesn't really strike me as being a big step up from Oculus. I really think the VR market is going to be like TVs. I mean, there's going to be like the top shelf, really, really good VR sets. The regular consumer doesn't really care about, 720p or 1080p. Most of them can't tell the difference. So I think that the cheapest VR headset is probably going to be the one that is the most popular. I also went to the Devolver Digital booth and I tried out 2 of their games. I predict that Enter the Gungeon is going to be really big. It's going to be coming out sometime in spring of this year, and it plays very well right now. The best way I could describe it is that it's kind of like a mix between like an overhead Zelda type game and a bullet hell shoot 'em up. It plays really well, and I do think it's going to be one of the next big indie games. I also tried out Omnibus. I know that one had a Kickstarter campaign. That's all I ever knew about it. I didn't know that they were part of Devolver Digital now. It didn't feel as complete as Enter the Gungeon, but it was still very fun. I don't think it's going to be as big as any other indie game. I mean, it is kind of like one of those really weird indie games, that people buy just out of curiosity. But I think those people who do give it a shot, they're not going to be disappointed. One of the smaller games that I tried was Alice in Tokyo Wonderland. I like how it's a 3D world but with cel-shaded characters, but the combat system is where it really shines. It instantly reminded me of Devil May Cry, and that's an itch that I've been wanting to scratch for a long time. They're still working on it, who the hell knows when it's going to come out, but it's well worth a look. One of the cool things about PAX that I didn't really realize last year is that a lot of the people who are showing off the games, those are the actual developers. I always assumed they were just people that they hired, to work the booth. And that came as a very pleasant surprise because I got to meet the creator of Lovely Planet. I was also carrying around a Game Boy camera and I was able to get a picture with him. And yeah, I know, ooh, face reveal. But yeah, it was great to meet him, and I was able to play his upcoming game Lovely Planet Arcade. That one doesn't play exactly like Lovely Planet, the original one, but I feel like it's a lot faster. The mechanics are different, but just like the original game, you pick them up in just a second. This game I know I'm going to buy on day one. I met tons of other people, and it was so great to ask for their picture, and then when they agree, I pull out a Game Boy camera. The looks on their faces were priceless. But anyways, out of all the games I saw there, the game that has me most hyped out of all of them has got to be Song of the South. Zippity-doo-dah, zippity-ay. I mean, Song of the Deep, sorry. But yeah, so this game was announced the week before PAX, and it's made by Insomniac. I was big into Insomniac back in the day. Ratchet & Clank was my thing. And this game, it's very unique because it's kind of a quasi-indie game. I don't even know what to call it. They're going to sell it for $15, and they're going into this with GameStop, which, to be honest, I find that to be a blessing in disguise because it's an indie game, but it's going to be $15 and they're going to put it on store shelves. It's actually going to get a physical release. I don't know if the physical release is going to be 15 bucks. If it is, oh my god, that is going to be so great. It's a Metroidvania, so they already got me there. But it's going to take place underwater, and I always felt that underwater is like the best setting for games ever. They didn't even have any gameplay there, all they had was a mural, but even then, this is going to be a day one purchase for me. And not everything at PAX South was all rosies and posies. I came across one booth which has the dumbest idea I've heard of in a long time. In fact, it's going to get its own video. So you guys are going to have to wait for that one, but I think it's going to be worth it. And lastly, I also met some chiptune artists over there. They were the founders of Lazy Bit Collective, and they put on a really good show with some modded Game Boys. So I thought they could play us out now. Thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.